it's healthy
Go.
too.
You're on.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, June 30th, 2022, and we're here for a work session. And as always, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Bob, can you please take the lead?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bob, and I have a few announcements for today. First, I want to thank everyone who participated, whether in person or virtually, in the State of the Town address yesterday, which I delivered last evening. Every department at the town of Riverhead has been very, very busy over the last year, and it was a pleasure to have had the opportunity to recap our many accomplishments here in Riverhead. I know the town board shares in my enthusiasm for what is in store for our great town. The entire speech is available on the town website and on Channel 22. Next, this Friday, July 1st, is the first much anticipated Alive on 25 festival for 2022. Beginning at 5 p.m., there will be live music, multiple stages, street vendors, food trucks, crafts, beverages, and plenty of family entertainment. And there'll be a fireworks display at 9 p.m. We hope to see everyone there. Lastly, on behalf of myself and the entire town board, I want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July weekend, and a reminder to residents, in observance of the holiday, Town Hall will be closed on Monday, July 5th, and reopening at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, July 6th. Whether you are barbecuing or you're visiting families and going to our great beaches, we hope that you have a great holiday. And for our first discussion, I'm going to invite Vic Kruzanaski to come forward and discuss the matter of solar energy alternatives. Good morning, Vic. And who do we have here with us?
We have Mark Lemmo of CSCA Energy.
Okay, good morning.
He's going to give the presentation. I have a handout here that I will give to the town board. You can follow along. This is the same presentation we gave to the Zoning Board of Appeals, which was on television. We also have a memorandum here from Gale Engineering, which is informative. They're an environmental engineers that are working on the project.
Vic, can you just introduce the project for the public
Yes,
that's watching remotely and
Yeah.
are not familiar with the
Right.
project?
So that's Mark. He'll do the presentation.
Okay, so it
No,
was...
Mark, you can sit right there. Mark, you'll be on mic, you'll be on.
Because I need to see this though, too.
Oh, okay, that's fine,
Okay,
yeah. do what
whatever's
you need
best
to
for
do.
you then.
And is this on the website? by any chance? Was this provided for the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, you have a copy that I presented at the public hearing of the EPA survey findings of all the digesters in the United States of America, 1,400 of them. Their
Okay.
effectiveness, their safety.
So let's
Mark
introduce
will
the
go
topic.
first, and then we'll answer questions, and I have another handout that I want to give you guys.
Okay. Can you please introduce the topic?
You have this already. I can provide, I didn't make extra copies. You have all this already, okay? I do have extra copies for the next one, because you're going to need it, okay?
My name is Mark Lembo. I am a resident of Wading River and a town resident in the town of Riverhead for the last 40 years. I am the CEO and managing partner of CEA Energy LLC. And we're looking for the support of the board to basically build a anaerobic digestion facility at EPCAL. And I just wanted to go over this presentation, which is some facts. We'll start with that, just to give an idea of background of where food waste is going, and where it was and where it's going. There's 40 to 50% of all food waste never gets eaten. So that means it's either thrown away, it doesn't get sold to the consumer, it's considered trim, and some of it doesn't get eaten at home. A lot of it can be reused when we're talking about prepackaged food waste, when you're talking about pallets of, say, cans of tomatoes, beans, whatever it may be, that sometimes just has what they call a selling expiration date. The food is still good, it's in the can. We get a lot of that because we'll process that food also, but we like to set up something with the town, with residents, with food banks that can take this food and reuse it within the town itself. So that's one of the benefits. When we talk about this, people want to know, well, if we're going to do this, what benefits is the town going to get? So the facts about the food waste is landfills are a source of 20% of all methane used. If the 232 million tons of food waste generated in the U.S. each year was processed by anaerobic digestion and used to generate electricity, it would offset 40 million tons a year of carbon dioxide that's generated from fossil fuels. So it gives us a much better, it gives us a much less footprint as in the years it goes. And the next slide, please. We're talking about a mandate that's gone into effect now since the whole mandate since 2020 that basically says any food distributor, commercial food wholesaler, industrial food manufacturer, supermarkets, restaurants, resorts, or whatever it may be, if they generate more than 2 to 3 tons a week, then they need to send it to be processed in this type of a facility. And that law is within a few states within the Northeast, and New York is one of those states. So then what do we do? What's the solution?
That's the one where it's the 25-mile radius.
Right, and within a 25-mile radius of the facility. So if one is built here, you're looking at, it's going to be within the boundaries of Suffolk County, which is 25 miles, and that food waste gets taken to this facility or another one of its type to get processed. Next slide, please. So then what's the solution? CEA Energy has partnered with the U.S.-based global technology provider to provide a complete industrial wastewater treatment and organic to waste energy solution. Hundreds of installations worldwide with the widest technology portfolios in the industrial marketplace. So they have hundreds of these in Europe. They also have a footprint in the United States and North America. Next slide, please. And then you have the process. The process is all indoors. When we look at what the process is, I'll just go step by step. The food waste that's trucked in will be put into, we have 2 or 3 bays. The doors open, the trucks go in, and they basically, unload the food waste. It is what they call negative air, so when the doors close, you're not going to get an odor that's coming out. And the food never touches again the ambient air. So it's all processed inside, indoors. Nothing's kept outside. None of the products. Nothing is kept outside. It's all indoors. And the industry. Next slide, please. So the industries are pretty much meat, poultry, fish, seafood, potato and food products. Mostly any type of organic food can be processed in this facility. Next, please. And you can see a little bit where the bays are. I just went over that. An odor control system will be utilized to ensure no odors escape the building. Substrate is grinded in at the reception hall, and the scrub base does not come in contact with the ambient air. Next, please. This just gives you a picture of what the tanks are and the reception tanks. We are looking at an 8-acre parcel on EPCAL, which is more than enough property to process everything. And then at the end processing, we're going to produce biogas, which can be converted into CNG or RNG, which is compressed natural gas or renewable natural gas, and or electricity. And the electricity that we would generate at EPCAL will be used exclusively by the tenants that are on the site. So anyone that has a business that are at EPCAL, that's why we would produce the electricity. It would be for them at a discounted rate from what they're getting now at PSEG. And so we got a real good reception about that from a couple of business owners that, let's face it, their energy costs now are exponentially rising. As time goes on, we're not in the best place right now for energy costs, but this way they will have a fixed rate that they don't have to worry about, and because we'll be generating that on the site. So, next slide, please. Our facility can handle up to 200 tons per day, and it's all source-separated organics, residues, commercial and industrial residues. Next slide, last one. One more, please. So this is what it's going to look like. This is our site up in Southern Connecticut, which the board 4 years ago went to take a visit, went to see it, kicked the tires, and understood. Part of the engineering department went, one of our board members, and to take a look, and they all had a very positive reaction to being at the site. So, again, this is what we'd like to propose. We'd like to ask if you have any questions, and Rick and I will be happy to answer those.
I said at
Thank
the
you
public
very
hearing
much.
So can
that
I
it was
just add-
250
Go
a
ahead.
day, it's 200 tons a day, so I just misspoke. What we have no application for a site plan yet, because we have to get through the code, what's permitted. We went to the zoning board of appeals, that's where they came to a conclusion. We think we meet the manufacturing, processing standards in the code now. We're good with all the prohibited uses in PIP. The deputy town attorney, the ZBA attorney, Dawn Woolman, said it's a better way if we go to the town board asking to amend the code. We ended up with a public hearing to prohibit the use. So what we're here today is to ask the town board to consider another public hearing, which we would amend the code to allow it as a use. I'm going to give you this now. This is a proposed language for the permitted part of this, which Dawn Thomas wrote. I just made a couple of corrections on it because it adds that it's by special permit only. I'll give this to Jefferson. He suggested that by special permit. I completely agree, where you can put operating conditions on. You know how a special permit works.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this what the actual site is going to look like?
Yes, yes. It may be a different color, it may not be white, but that's really the footprint of the site
Okay.
itself.
You
We
discussed,
haven't done a
We
site
have-
plan yet, okay?
okay,
Because what
we
we're
have
trying to do,
questions.
what we're trying to do is get to the point which we're allowed to put it in an application. So that's what this is all about. So in the meantime, if you see fit to authorize a public hearing, it would be by special permit. So before we'd even be allowed to put in a special, a site plan application, we'd go through a special permit hearing where we would have to answer all the questions.
So
and then
you're
at the end-
making a request to have
Yes,
to
right,
have a hearing?
right.
But let's the board answer
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, absolutely. I
And then
just
they
wanna
were
know
going to
what-
decide.
there
So
you
I
go.
thought that
That's-
could come later.
that's correct.
Let's
That's
ask
correct.
questions, let's see where
Yes.
we are, and then
Okay.
you can make whatever request.
That's
I think
correct.
it'll flow a
correct.
little better. So,
Okay.
Where is
Yardways,
this?
too, we
In
can
Long
cover-
Island? Where do we have this in Long Island, this type of,
We don't have, there is not
there's
one
none
on
in Long
Long
Island? Okay.
There is being one being proposed in Yaphank by the Vigilata family,
And that-
650 tons a day.
That's a lot,
But
much
he wants to
larger.
bring in outside material on the rail, and we're not into
We can't have
at
that
all.
in Riverhead.
No.
And one other thing is that besides the food waste, when we talk about organics, we're talking also about brush, leaves, branches, things that in the town is becoming very hard to basically process and do away with.
So you'll be able to process our leaves?
Yes, we'll be able to
Would there
process.
be a cost?
No, it'll be the same tipping fee as anything else that's brought in with food waste. So it just becomes part of the process.
Okay.
but I don't know to the extent of what you're aware of, how many leaves that we collect each year, but from what I understand, an anaerobic digester, there's only a small minimal amount of leaves that can be processed with it to get the end result that you need. So I don't know that you're gonna be able, you're saying that this facility is gonna be able to process all the leaves that's generated and collected in the town of Riverhead at no charge?
Well, not no charge,
Tipping fee.
it's the tipping fee. In other words, when the organics is brought in, it becomes a tipping fee, whatever that tipping fee would be. It's usually the market rate. We
But
don't,
if our highway department was collecting it, our highway department, you're saying could drive directly to EPCAL and dump?
excuse me?
Can our highway department drive directly to EPCAL and dump these leaves?
Yes, it would come
So
directly to
it wouldn't be a
EPCAL.
tipping fee if we're collecting on the streets.
Right. And we would want to find out the data, in other words, exactly how many tons of leaves, or if you want to call it tonnage, that the town would have. And that's basically a separate piece of equipment that's, within the process itself. We're also talking to the town of Brookhaven, which has a much, much larger problem. And we're looking.
Not for this facility at all.
No.
It's for another
That's-
project they would do.
That's another project that will be in the town of Brookhaven. So
Right.
when
Not-
you
has
say,
nothing to do
hey, can you do all our leaves, we're pretty assured that we could do most of it compared to a much larger town. So, and then we would basically do the footprint of the processing inside to accommodate the data that you give us at that
Tell us
point.
about your collection now. So how is this material getting to you? So I understand about large stores, supermarkets that may.
It'll be trucked in.
by the
That's what you're looking
commercial
at.
partners.
Is there any type of residential, how does residents participate in this in any way?
No, at this point, it is a benefit for the town that we would like to do is that we have a lot of residents that do their own composting, they have their food scraps, and, doing the survey of some people, especially people that like to do composting, they could we'll have like what we call a walk-up little facility that they can come with how much food scraps they have, and we would take it in and process it, and then basically would give them a finished compost. So that's something that we would like to do. We're not contemplating now another pail or another to be put out to the curb when we talk about residential. This is strictly on a commercial
The commercial.
level, industrial and commercial.
And we would try to accommodate the highway department, because you have two sources now. You have the residential, puts it out on Thursday or Friday, and that's picked up by the contract carters. That's a separate thing we wouldn't be involved in. So, in order to answer all these questions and to put the operation restrictions on it, that's when we would make a special permit application. We can't even do that until we get to resolve the code. That we would be allowed to do that, and then after that due diligence, at that point, if the town board says, yay, we're satisfied with your concept, and then we'd be allowed to put in the actual application and go and site plan, which you would get again, and that's where all the operating conditions would be put on it, both by the special permit and by the planning. What we want to do is the big picture, that it's something that should be considered in the town of Riverhead, only in EPCAL, only in the PIP zoning, and by special permit, and then a lot of these questions would be answered as we go forward, and in the first round, if you're not satisfied, you vote it down. If you're satisfied, you vote up and say you're allowed to do it by special permit, then you can put in the application for site plan, which you would review again, and we'd have to do an environmental impact statement. We need EPA, we need DEC, we need Health Department, and we need the town of Riverhead planning, zoning, and then eventually get a site plan approval and then a building permit. So what we're here today is to ask the town board to consider calling for another public hearing where this would be allowed by special permit in the PIP zoning to go forward.
Yeah, that we understand, Vic. I have a question, we just want to get some questions answered.
Well, but
okay?
not everybody in town might understand it. That's why I'm saying, because we're on
I
television.
know, but
Okay.
and you've said that,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
thank you. Outside odors, there's negative air, so what's the other outside odors?
Excuse me?
Outside odors.
No, there's not
Because of
outside
the
odors.
negative air, there's no outside odors.
Right, that's
Okay.
why, this is
I
always been...
understand, I get it.
You get
All right,
it.
so the next question I have is, we're giving you leaves, right? So that's food for you to convert to energy.
From
And you
the
wanna
highway,
charge-
twice a year from the highway.
Understood. and you want to charge us a tipping fee to give you the food to make the energy, is there any kind of revenue share?
Yes, there is,
Okay.
and that's a benefit to the town. We would like to work out an arrangement where the town would get a part of all of the tipping fee. Since we're doing this in Riverhead, and we may be taking things from, adjacent towns, then the town should have a benefit, a benefit
Okay.
of recurring
And
revenue.
that would be determined through a special permit. That would be one of the conditions of
Understood,
operation.
I understand
Well,
that.
a lot of people in the town don't understand that, Bob. You understand it, but a lot of people in the town...
I'm not finished answering my questions,
okay.
okay? Can I
Right.
just ask my questions and then,
Fair. Well, I just want to make it clear.
No,
It's okay.
So-
Yes, so it could be, it all depends if we get to the 200 tons per day. It could be, for the town, it could be, something around a $10 million revenue for the town over the life of the project, which is about 20 years. So that's the type of revenue that the town would get.
Yeah, and that's, I think it's important
Yeah.
for the constituents to know that.
Yes.
And Vic, I understand that that's something that would be worked out with the special permit. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so we always believe that the town should get a benefit in the ways that I've just spoke about. So that, again, that'll be worked out.
Another question I have, you're talking about setting up what would be a microgrid, correct? For the businesses,
For the electricity, yes.
the electricity. So would that be considered a microgrid in Berman?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's pretty set up with, on the site. They have everything that we need
Yeah,
to produce
okay.
that and disseminate that electricity throughout,
I
throughout.
think that's great.
How about gases? Can any of the secondary products produce any type of gases?
No. Once the methane, say we're going to produce RNG, a renewable gas, or CNG,
For
that
the
goes
public,
directly.
can you describe what RNG is?
RNG is renewable natural gas, which is directly put into the pipeline. Then there is a pipeline connection at EPCAL. We never go look, we always have to have that, and so that would be put directly into the pipeline, right in. So it goes right from inside the facility, right to right to that connection.
Actually, the pipeline is directly parallel to this Scott Avenue where Metro is and Island is right now. That's where the pipeline's right there. So we'd run a pipe to that, and then we would siphon off enough to run the cogeneration plant to produce the electricity. That would be the other source of revenue that we would have, would be tipping fees from the commercial carters or the commercial establishments like supermarkets and stuff, and then it would be the money we'd get back for producing the electricity.
How'd you come up with the 25-mile radius?
What's that?
What's that from?
Well, the 25-mile radius is set by state law. Once a digester is operational,
Then the law
the
states anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere within a
all the
25
commercial-
mile radius.
All the commercial waste, organic waste, must go to a digester.
I mean, we're
That's
40
New York
miles,
state law.
we're 40 miles from Montauk, and we're almost 50 miles
It'd be
to
only
Huntington.
25
So
miles.
you're
Only
staying
25.
within
25 miles radius from the digester. That's New York State.
That's all collections, regardless of what it is.
Of the commercial, of the, which we'll send you the law. I mean, the planning department has it, and the ZBA guys have it, and Dawn Thomas has it, but we'll send you the law. It's specified in there, the organic materials.
Right?
Yeah, I'd like to just speak quickly about the unused food, the 50% that you were talking about before. I sit on the board of Island Harvest, and we have a real great program with Stop and Shop. And expiration dates, as they're approaching, they flash freeze meats and then are redistributed through Island Harvest. Could we, parlay something like that to have, not necessarily meats, but food that hasn't been used and is just prior to its expiration could be redistributed. We have very hungry people in our town, and I think if you guys would be collecting that kind of thing, if we could work with some of the local food pantries, that would be
That's
really
exact-
dynamite.
That's exactly what we want to do.
Good.
Okay, so bottom line is, we want to change the code and possibly And before that, we're going to have a public hearing.
Oh, you
Correct?
gotta have a public hearing,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
gotta be,
We'll
it's
just
gotta be
recap it
amended.
for the
Yeah, we have
public.
to-
Yep.
So what we're requesting
So
is
it's up
that
to
it-
the board to decide if they want to
Yeah.
move this forward for another public hearing. Where do we stand?
All right, I have some questions yet.
Oh, okay.
Tim?
All right, Mark, you talked about 200 tons a day, right? That's what you're looking to do. Riverhead generates how many?
It generates probably around 3 to 5 tons per day at this point.
And you're going to get the rest of that
Within that 25-mile
195 tons from within the 25-mile radius? Okay. So it serves a kind of a minute purpose for the town of Riverhead, but you're doing a service in a 25-mile radius. Similar to solar. Solar uses our land, right? They use the sun, they produce energy, but solar gives us back community benefits. A, would you be interested in a community benefit to the town of Riverhead in the nature that solar does? Because you're not just purposing the town of Riverhead, you're purposing outside the area. Riverhead seems to be a catch-all for purposing everybody around us, not just us. And I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about what we do just for our Riverhead folks and not as concerned about what we do for everybody outside of us. Because everybody outside of us doesn't seem to be concerned about taking in Riverhead. You understand where I'm going?
I understand
Okay.
exactly what you're saying.
So I'm looking for some type of community benefit.
In what sense, besides what I've laid out?
Oh, way besides what you laid out.
Okay.
Way besides what you laid out, because you didn't lay anything out to me. You told me that you would probably take most of our leaves. That means
Well, no,
nothing
we
to
also,
me.
there's a cash
That
on the,
means
on the
nothing.
tipping fee. The town would get a portion of the tipping fee from each, from 100%.
I get that, I
Okay.
heard that.
Yeah.
But our concern is, if you're doing 200 tons a day,
Mm-hmm.
you should know exactly whether you can or can't take our leaves right now.
Well,
You
it-
should be able to tell me that right now.
Well, I can tell you that right now.
And your answer of probably take most is so vague,
All right.
it's not something I can
Well,
bite
then,
into.
Tim, I would need the data from the town first. In other words, how many tons of leaf do you have? Like I'm saying, I could take 200 tons in. If half of it's going to be leaves, that's fine with me, because it gets processed the same way as any of the other food waste. So if you're saying to me, Mark, we have 150 tons, 100 tons, 50 tons, whatever it may be, as long as I don't go over that 200 tons, I'm going to take it in, because you're guaranteeing me that every year. Every year you're saying to me, we have these leaves that's going to the town, we have brush, we have hurricanes, whatever it may be.
But
So I'm willing to
leaves
do
are not
that.
going to produce just on their own. You need the leaves mixed with,
It missed
Food.
with, missed with the
Yeah,
fun.
right.
Well, what I'm saying to you, why I said, and maybe, I don't want you to get the wrong impression, that we could take most. I need that data. If you say to me, we have 100 tons, then I will make sure that the town, the first 100 tons is set aside for the town of Riverhead. That will be part of our, part of our
so how are you going to
negotiation.
use that 100 tons? If you're a 200 ton a day plant, you're telling me that 100 tons of food and 100 tons of leaves will work for you? I don't see, this isn't,
Why wouldn't it work? Yeah, of course it'll
I
work.
thought leaves have to be a very, I think what Tim might be saying, leaves are a very small component that must be mixed in with, to
Right.
create the proper
Well,
method for
we-
the
Well, that
anaerobic
makes it even,
digester.
so,
So maybe it's 5%, is it 2%,
We
but the
don't
number's
produce
low.
100 tons a day of
That's my point.
of
Thank you.
leaves, but we do probably produce a certain amount of tons a day of the general yard waste that you see collected all over town by our carters. What the question I thought was, when our highway department, on a seasonal basis, picks this up, would we be able to take it? And the answer is yes, because it doesn't exceed that amount. But
Over
we
what
would
period
work
of
that
time,
out
so are the leaves,
during the special permit process.
are the leaves stored up there? Does it take 6 months to get rid of 100 tons of leaves? In other words, because I think you're only continuously putting in a very small amount of leaves with the system as it processes. So, and over the course of, is it 3 months, 6 months, or what is percentage of leaves can be processed through this anaerobic
well,
digester
we could process 200 tons per day
of leaves?
of whatever the mixture may be, whatever the food waste, leaves, brush, organics, grass, whatever that may be. So if you're saying to me, and we'll work out a schedule, is what I think is what you're saying to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, hey, we'll give you we'll give you what we have. If you want to have it on a schedule basis, fine. like I said, we could take 200 tons. If you don't have that for the whole year, then we're fine. It's not a problem for us to process whatever the town may have.
I was hoping you'd had that information today if you come in here for a presentation.
Well, we're not.
If you got to do a public hearing, which we know you do, if we're going to change this, I highly recommend you have that information
Well, I can
for
need
us,
that
so
from
we
the
will
town,
know
yes.
how many leaves you can take in, how many leaves the town produces.
Mm-hmm.
That information's easily accessible.
Okay?
So we want you to have that.
Yeah, we will.
I'm leery. I'm leery about this, to be honest with you. And I know some of the board members went over to Connecticut and toured the plant, and everything was good when they toured the plant. But I've also read articles from neighbors and neighboring businesses that say it's not as hunky-dory as you promote that it is. So, there's always two sides to every story, and I like to get both sides before I make a decision. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still out on this. The jury is still out for me on this, and
That's
I've got to
okay.
do some more reading and research.
Well, hopefully we can, basically, give the information to you that'll change your mind. That's
All
fine.
right, Jeff would like to speak.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Staff has already been doing a lot of research on these types of facilities,
And
and
you've provided it to us also. I appreciate that. Thank you,
and
guys.
we're going to be preparing a draft code for your consideration, and it's going to be a lot more extensive than what Vic has presented to you, because there are obviously a lot of issues raised with this, and the code is not specifically tailored for this one applicant. It's addressing the whole PIP zoning district, so it can't be spot zoning for one individual. So if we allow it for this individual, it's got to be allowed for every other property within the PIP, so we have to be very mindful of that. Couple of questions for Vic. First of all, are you going to be bringing biosolids in? Or Mark, either one of you?
Excuse me?
Are you bringing in biosolids into into the digester?
What do you talk about biosolids?
We have Matt, Matt, this is Matt Charters. Mark, he's been doing the bulk of the research for us. The other questions for Vic and Mark are, when pre-packaged food comes into the facility, there's obviously going to be a byproduct in terms of paper, styrofoam, plastic wrap, that sort of thing. How does that going to be addressed? Is that going to be additional truck traffic into and out of the facility? What material is going to be brought in by rail, and what's going to be exported by rail, and how much? So we have a number of questions regarding that. The excess, the byproduct sludge material, where is that going to be? Obviously, from what, Vic, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to be making it into fertilizer or anything on the property. You're going to be exporting it off the site?
Yeah, that'll be off the site. We have what we call off-takers that, in other words, that we've made arrangements with to buy that. They will come and take that.
So will that be in town or out of town?
That will be out of town. That will be, these guys are from
Yeah.
the Midwest.
Okay, would that be by truck or rail?
That hasn't been determined.
Okay.
It all depends on how much sludge we're going to produce. That would be up to them, whether they have a large fleet, or are they going to do it by rail.
Okay.
So
That-
that has not been determined.
Well, we would prefer, our goal would be to use the rail. That's why when we came up with this language, we wanted to make sure that the digester is near the rail.
And then that would be stored inside the building also?
Inside the building. There will
Okay.
be nothing stored outside the building.
Okay, that's one of the big concerns. All right, Matt Charters has, can address the question about the biosolids.
Great. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning. So biosolids, in terms of it can be, sludge from a sewage treatment plant, effluent,
No, we're not bringing any of that.
anything like that, because that can,
We're not bringing in any sewage treatment plant effluent, period.
okay, that's fine.
And
What we're going to do is that we're going to produce probably around 100,000 gallons of water every day, because food is mostly water. So what happens is that we treat that water to the point of the regulations and specifications of the Riverhead the sewage treatment plant. So that's where that water will be going. And so we're not bringing anything into.
And the byproducts of that treatment will be taken out, put in a seal, and we're gonna ship it out. Preferably rail if we can, if not, it'll be shipped out by truck, but it will not be processed into any fertilizer. Whatever the prohibited uses are
No.
in PIP, in the planned industrial park, we're fine with that. And one in there, one of the prohibited uses is fertilizer manufacturing.
Correct, yeah.
And we're fine with that. We're not going to manufacture any. I know in Europe, they produce some fertilizer
Well-
byproducts, but we're not doing that
Yeah,
here.
the digestate can be used as a fertilizer, that's the main.
Yes, it can be, but
byproduct.
at this facility, because of the restrictions, we will not be doing that. Some of our other facilities that we're working on, other projects throughout the Northeast, that's one of the, what they call perks. They would like to see that happen.
So
But
our revenue
that's for us
stream
at this
here
point
is the
now.
tipping fees from the commercial carters and the money we would get by selling the gas to National Grid or the cogeneration electric generator plant that we'll have and selling it to the tenants inside, the users inside the property.
So, do you have any more questions, Ben? Okay, so from my standpoint, in terms of the fertilizer, okay, and what I'd like to know at some point, right now it's costing farmers, their fertilizer cost is up about 500%. For me, I would love to see fertilizer come out of there and go to our farms, because it would be...
Well, we don't.
No, I know you
It's
don't.
prohibited, we're not
I
here to promote
understand,
that.
I don't,
know.
I understand it's prohibited. What I'm saying is, as an American, okay, that, we are buying fertilizer from all over the world, and it's costing our farmers a fortune to the point we're on the brink of going out of
That's
business.
for you to decide, the town board to
No,
decide.
and-
But we
So,
also
wait,
have a
can-
program with the sewer district
Sewage,
that's really a top-notch one, and it's going to be providing some
Yes, it-
well-needed,
Maloney.
yeah,
Yes.
Class A biosolids.
Cool.
So we have something in the town that will be
Yes.
Right.
If
addressing
it-
not
that.
interfere.
No, I understand we
Yeah.
do, but the question is, does that address all, enough of the farms? That's,
Yeah.
it does? Will it
Yes.
cover everybody? Okay.
The answer is yes, if that's what the town wants, yes, we
No,
can.
I just want to know that that's
That's a plus.
available because, to help. No, that's great, thank you.
Yeah, I was just talking with Bill Zalakar, who's the
Good.
head of the Long Island Farm Bureau, and he's been working with Mike Reichel about the biosolids coming up, and he's got grants, and so that is something that is definitely being worked on, and
Good.
the container guys and the sod guys.
I agree
Yeah.
with Bob, but for the purpose of why we're here today, I don't.
Right.
No, I understand that.
To
Look,
go out there
thanks
that
for
we're gonna be a
indulging me.
manufacturer of
I'm
fertilizer,
concerned
which
about
is
our
a
farming.
prohibited use.
Thanks for indulging me. I'm concerned about our farming community and what their needs are.
We
So
would be happy. we
I
would be
understand,
happy to
but
do that.
thank you. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh, I have one other question. And
Go.
to Tim's point, Tim, the solar companies, do they give us, when they give us a community benefit, is it a one-time payout or they do it on an annual basis?
It's a one-time payout up front of their project once they close.
Okay.
We receive the money from the community benefits, and then the community benefits, we have by board decided
Okay.
where that money can and can't
So
be
it
used.
basically, hold on a second, you asked a question, I want to clarify it. There is an initial upfront,
Understood.
and then there's a payment thereafter, that's agreed upon. So the board and the attorney's office decide. So there's usually two payments. So, and it can change, you can make it one payment. And then there's also, any of these projects, they're also generating taxes.
But it's not annual payments.
It's all
Yeah,
up front.
that's it.
That's it, there's
Yeah.
no more community
No,
benefit payment
That's
after
my
you receive the
question,
payment.
so, and that's why that's why I asked about a revenue share, and the reason why I asked about a revenue share, is so that we're seeing money every year for the 20 years, the life of
Well,
this
that's what we
project.
have.
Not too
And I don't
sure.
know, and to your point, and I don't know what that comes out to be, whether it's best for us to get it up front or to do a revenue share.
I'm not too sure if that's an approach. If a business fails, then you don't get anything.
That's a
So
good point.
you gotta look at the other side. You
Good
get the
point.
community benefit out now, the public gets to enjoy it, they get the extra taxes, that's on an annual basis. But I don't think we should go into any type of contract with any business on a yearly, especially an experimental project. We don't even have one of these in Long Island, so let's just slow down on that one, I think, maybe, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a matter of fast or slow for me, it's a matter of, I think you make a good point here.
Yeah,
It
right.
might be better up front. So.
Yeah, I
okay.
think it would be.
That can be determined during the whole process.
But
Well,
you know
that
what?
would be
That's down
determined
the
during
line.
a special,
Yeah,
that's what you
exactly.
did with the solar during the special permit. I think in the site plan, you
Mm-hmm.
made a deal where they paid so much money. And I agree with Timmy. it should be both here. We should pay up front and on a continuous basis, what we have on the table.
No, that's how
Plus
they
the
usually
property
are done.
tax, plus the
Yeah,
property taxes.
Yeah.
Great.
What's the height of the tallest part of any of this proposed setup that you have?
Probably around 35 feet, 40 feet. And if that's usually a normal tank. If you guys didn't want that height, say you wanted, for argument's sake, a 20-foot,
If it's 50
then we could
feet,
just
it just
spread it out.
spreads out more.
Yeah. You know,
Right, well, right now, I think the height limitation in PIP, you correct me, Jeff, I think is 50 feet with all my other clients. I mean, there are buildings there that are pre-existing, of course, from the Grumman days that are much higher than 50 feet, but that's just the tower where Riley is, I think, where all that is.
Yeah, that's all, that could all be, that's more of aesthetics than anything else, and
Okay.
it would accommodate the town.
Just back up to the 100,000 gallons of water produced. You said that water will be treated.
Will be treated according to the specification standards for the sewer district, whatever that may be.
So
We
that
could
water
clean it
would
to the-
then be put into the sewer?
But yes,
Okay.
we will,
And we have to pay the
we'll pay the
sewer.
Right,
charge,
you
we'll pay
pay
the hookup.
by
Plus,
That's-
the key money, Timmy, to hook up to the water, and so we gotta pay all the key money.
Right.
Do a mapping plan, which we just did for the Suffolk Theater, and all that we have to do, of course. That's part
Now,
of it.
we have the capability, just as we're talking about the water, to do potable water, drinkable water. We could clean it that clean. Maybe someday, maybe want to use something like that. Water's becoming a very precious commodity at this point, and, we've seen it even in our town, and it's going to be more of a precious commodity as time goes on. So that's something that, if the town comes to us and say, look, we want you to clean it up to a certain, clean up to drinkable water, and we're going to use that throughout the town, that's fine for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea going forward, to talk with the water district about that. The superintendent's great, and certainly any new available water would be welcomed, I'm sure. But I think that's something that should be spoken about going forward.
Well, we're on an aquifer, that's the only water we have, basically. So, yeah.
Just a shout out to Cheech, he's in the audience right now.
Yeah, no, at some point, I agree with Frank. You're going to want to speak to our Frank Mancini. He's our guru in the water district.
Look, we're here to accommodate the town in as many ways as possible. We're not here, to try to shove a square peg into a round hole. That's not what we do. We can customize, again, the facility height, whatever it may be, but the basic core is that we're going to take food waste and produce natural gas electricity. And that's all that the town will allow, and that's, at this point, and that's what we're here to do.
And that, all those details would be, again, I guess I'm not, in order to get to that point, to answer all these
Yeah, you
specific
gotta raise
questions,
your voice.
we have to apply for a special permit, and then all those conditions would be worked out, and with the approval of the town. Then we have to go to site plan, then we have to go to all our other EPA, DEC, Health Department, everything else, to operate this thing safely in the best interest of the town. And this is an industrial park. In some of the other areas, maybe in Connecticut, I wasn't up there, but is it in near a residential area up there in Connecticut? I don't know, I wasn't
No,
there.
no, it's pretty
All
much
right,
on
we
the
have,
same
Okay.
footprint
We've got other things.
Yeah, he
as
wants to speak.
the,
Okay.
as EPCAP.
Really short.
All right, Jeff is
Just
back.
the last concluding remark, no matter where we go with this, it's a type 1 action under SECRA.
Of course.
So even the drafting of a law is a type 1 action. So no matter what we do, it's a type 1 action under SECRA.
Okay.
That doesn't include the FEIS part of it. If this law gets adopted and they submit an application to you, then SECRA starts all over again, so.
Okay, thank you.
And,
Thank you both.
Supervisor, I just want to answer one, like, when you said that about being experimental, there's 1,500 of these in the United States. We have the EPA,
You have that report, we
Right,
can
so
have the
this-
clerk give it to you all.
so this is not any type of newfangled technology. It's been around, it's been proven, so, I just want to make that point, is that we're not trying to, to basically use the town as a guinea pig. This has been proven throughout the United States, throughout the world. So we're hoping that, we can get this done, and we're just here to...
In that EPA report, there's a conclusion in the back of the report of the survey, and I would urge everybody to read it, and we'll give a copy to the press. I know one of the press outlets has it already. I sent it to them.
Do we have an electronic copy of that? We have to put all this stuff online.
We do, I can send it to you electronically too. I gave
All
you-
these documents, if you
Yes.
could
Yes,
send them
all
we have them all
electronically?
electronically,
And
yes.
when we get them, we'll put them
Yes,
online.
of course, I will say that your departments have them already, just so you know.
I know that, but
Okay.
we're
I'll send it
here,
to, I'll send it,
and it
look,
should be part of
look,
this hearing. so
I
we
was
have
on the
to-
town board too, so I'm just telling you that we wanted to provide everything to the board, and we did, to the ZBA, to the planning
Right,
department.
but this is a separate entity.
Okay, fine.
They're
Yes,
independent
I'll
body.
send the electronic
Yeah, that's all.
copy of the EPA.
Yep, and we'll put them
thing.
up. Great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Ken, anyone?
Thank you.
We're good?
Oh,
Thank you.
wait, there was a question on the public hearing. Where do we stand here?
It's up to you, Dan.
As a board?
I think there's material here that we can all sit and review and maybe discuss it. I think maybe you should go to code revision first too as well, because it's a new code,
Okay,
right? What do you think?
Okay.
Yes,
Further
it should.
discussion?
It should.
Just
okay.
before we
So we're
present
not,
and
no
set it up.
public hearing and
Well,
no code revision?
Not saying no to a
No,
public hearing.
right now,
but
right now. They
a little more
requested
work,
it.
go to code revision, let them look at it, make recommendations, right? Because then
Yep.
we have multiple department heads that sit in code revision that can just look at it and add insight to it, and then perhaps we'll be ready for a public hearing.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
And we'll have, and if we get to that public, if we get to that, when we get to that public hearing, we'll have that Timmy wants that, which is, yes, I agree, and we'll have that for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'll get together with the highway
Right.
and get the data collected. I want to thank you for your time, all right, and your efforts always. It's
All
not
right.
easy being up there and doing things that, being a public servant, so thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, Vic. And next, I'm going to ask Deputy Town Attorney Anne Marie Prudenti and one of our engineers, Jason Hazard,
Blizzard.
Blizzard, excuse me, it's typed in Blizzard,
I think so.
to join us in update of where we stand on cannabis legislation. So Councilman Rothwell has been working hard on this, and Ken, I'm going to let you take it over.
Thank you very much, Madam Supervisor. So, one of the ideas, we put together a cannabis committee, was strictly designed to aid the town board supervisor in discussions about retail and on-site consumption, and basically it was a time, manner, and place. We didn't create the laws that came before the governor that cannabis is legal in now New York State, and so the question is, how do we determine, where it should be located, where the retail shops should be, where
Was
it
this
can be
provided to
consumed?
us, so we can put it online?
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
was.
is.
We already provided, I believe
Perfect.
Devin already made it
Thank
available
you.
online.
And so, we wanted to get insight. The committee was created by we had Wading River Civic Association, Greater Jamesport Civic Association. We had Riverhead School District participate, the Chamber of Commerce, CAP, BID, individuals also on a committee that were, just to make sure that we had a fair demographic throughout the whole town, and so residents from Jamesport to Wading River and all towns in between. In addition, we allowed people to participate in the discussion, so we had concerned local residents, but we also had people that had an interest in perhaps someday obtaining the ability to open up a retail shop or consumption location as well. So I think it was a very, very informative discussion. There were things in which we came up with this approach towards how do we aid the town in determining where these locations will be. And so what we did is we decided to do basically our own map and plan. There are certain legalities that come forth of the state. For example, the state of New York tells us that we need to have distances from churches and schools. And the state of New York initially said, I believe, that schools were going to be 500 feet. But when we discussed within our own committee that we have 1,000 feet for our current drug-free school zones, and that we wanted to abide by that. So the committee's recommendations, for example, were to go up to 1,000 feet away from schools, so we keep those drug-free school zones essentially drug-free. And then in addition, we discussed how far away we should be from churches, schools, town beaches, parks, communities, daycare, libraries. And so we created this mapping plan, and it's really, and I got the credit, Jason has worked really, really hard on this, and we've had him redo it again and again, and he's been great. But I'll just briefly about, like, take for example, the heart of our town in downtown Riverhead. There are so many factors in terms of discussing whether or not we're gonna have retail places or consumption places in downtown Riverhead. We have 2 churches downtown, we have a school downtown, we have other learning centers essentially that are basically the Long Island Science Center will be down there, and we have the ballet school. We had some advocates come and speak to the meeting that they consider them as a learning facility essentially. We have family recreation, so we have the Long Island Aquarium down there. And so we put in all these factors, and when you start keeping proper distances from whether it be a church or a school, it begins, and our goal wasn't just to say, here's all your limitations, but it was also in fairness to aid, and I think we were well appreciated of the work of the committee, that we aided those that want to, bring a consumption or retail place to Riverhead, because it spelled out to them, okay, here's where you can't do it, but that means this is where you can. And so as opposed to somebody keep coming before a board going, how about this? No, how about this? No. And so now they know exactly where they can work and for the properties and zoning that they're looking at. So obviously, the work of the committee didn't set any, laws or factors, but this was done and created so that the town board can act on some of the committee's work. And so I'll let Anne Marie speak to.
Well, actually, I'm going to put it right to Jason. What I handed you is a draft. No pride in authorship. It's the same draft I shared with the Cannabis Committee. It includes their consensus regarding distances, but, and it's going to require more work and consideration on behalf of the town board and probably code revision committee. But I think it's a fair or a really good start. But I wanted Jason to actually walk the town board through from beginning to how we got here today.
Thank you. So this first map is basically like a skeleton of what we created. This was based off the town parks map that me and Anne Marie actually worked on a couple of years ago, to locate all the town parks, community centers, and then in this round we added schools, the aquarium, or any kind of amusements, religious, and this was basically the first draft. The next draft is basically where we created all the agreed upon buffers. So the 500 and 1,000-foot buffers that we had originally agreed upon. As Councilman Rothwell said, we then looked through all the zoning and decided reviewed it and said these are the locations or zoning that it's allowed in or not, and basically stripped the rest of the zoning that it was not allowed in and only showed you the zoning where it was allowed. And then we took these two maps and basically put them on top of each other in order to show exactly where they were allowed to do or not allowed to do, either on-site consumption or retail. Now the other handout that I gave you is all the restricted use designations. So this is all the amusements, beaches, community centers, daycares, parks that we all have, their area, their address, and all their buffers associated with them. So basically this is where we have come to now, and the last map you can see where everything is overlaid on top of each other. And although there are, as Councilman Rothwell said, although there are a lot of restrictions, there is a fair amount of space that is still available with the zoning and with all the locations considered.
And that's what I think what the goal of our committee was, is that we have to give people fair, honest answers about where it can and can't. Because if somebody wants to open a retail shop, the board just can't say no, no, no. We have to justify our reasons why. And so and this kind of helps us. It tells us, if the answer is in fact no, it's because you're close to church, because you're close to a school, you're adjacent to a town park, whatever it may be. And if it's yes, it's just, the yes answer is helpful for those that are looking to come here. And so, we've kind of outlined, where the potential areas are. There are potential areas through the town, so certainly in the far west end, as soon as you enter the town of Riverhead in Wading River, there are some leases that go, there's other availabilities within the East Wind shops, then it comes into throughout Route 58. There are some allotments downtown, and there are some allotments, going in along Route 25 as you expand into Jamesport. And so it's really was a rewarding experience to go through it. I'm going to say that when I was assigned to the committee initially, supervisor, I thought this is going to be a tough task because I thought we were going to have people at opposite ends of the spectrum in the room, and how are we going to come to agreement? But they really, Anne Marie and Jason Wilkener, everybody really worked well together. And it was like, okay, I understand we're not here to say no, we're trying to find it and to clarify, because it was beneficial to both sides, and their approach.
So, is there any guidelines coming down from the New York State Office of Cannabis Management that could be helpful, or at least align our regulations with? I mean, I know that they're constantly changing and they're growing, and
Not on the zoning, saturation, those considerations. The law from the get-go made it perfectly clear. There were certain minimum criterias related to schools and churches, but that a municipality was free to adopt time, place, and manner and saturation as they deemed in the best interest of its community.
so outside of licensing or anything else that the state would provide, it's up to the locality to provide this.
Absolutely.
Good.
And so I want to say regarding this, the Cannabis Committee, it was very unique and interesting because at times the views were diametrically opposed. Anti-marijuana, pro-marijuana, school versus grower, but it was really quite amazing because everybody spoke their mind, truthfully, honestly, even though they had really differing opinions, but they listened to each other, and in the end, at our very last meeting, it was really surprising the consensus that came together. So in a portion of the draft, what you see is a reflection of their consensus. And I just want to go back one step. When we first started the step and Jason did his first map, what we said to the members of the community that participated, did we miss a school? Did we miss a church? Is there something else we should add? One of the items were amusements geared toward children, like the aquarium and Splish Splash, so we added that. So in the draft, you'll see those distances agreed upon. What's really important and left for the town board to consider is if there are any zoning districts where it is permitted that you choose to eliminate. Next, do you desire to include saturation limits? So if it's permitted in shopping center, do you want to put limited to 2 within that district or 2 within 5,000 feet of each other? Those are the remaining items for the town board really to discuss. Plus, I admit, it probably should go to code revision. They probably could streamline this draft.
Anne Marie, I have a couple of questions. I don't see the town square here as far as our development, and that's going to have a children's park in it.
It's on the Main Street, it's shown as a buffer around the entire town square, which
Okay,
goes into,
it is?
goes
Okay.
all the way down to Heidi Bear Way, to all the part of the
Oh,
town park.
And on Main Street, correct?
If you
Okay,
look at the
so that's
downtown-
one area.
Yes,
So, including our riverfront.
yep.
Okay, great. And then, is the Guatemalan Embassy on here? That's, I think we might want to add that. We might want to add the police department location, because
That's
What
kind
would
of
be-
confusing,
what would
though. It's
be-
right next to Columbia Care, isn't it?
But what does that have to do with it?
that's
Yeah.
only for sale.
But it's medical.
Columbia is strictly
That's
medical,
interesting.
and
Yeah.
they're in their own
That's a
different
good point,
zones.
though.
Yeah,
if they-
why,
what if
why
they-
would we, so, we could do
This is
that.
for
It
people to
wasn't,
smoke. We were talking about,
it wasn't recommended by the committee, so what we put before you
right,
was those additional, moving away from schools and churches, we added those other things like town parks, amusements geared toward
Right.
children, medical facilities that the individuals that participated in the committee recommended we add.
okay, so I'm recommending, I see here you have emergency services. So you have the ambulance, you have the fire department, so we're gonna include the, why is this on this list then? These are restricted use locations, right? Where
Yeah.
people can't smoke.
For retail and.
Retail and
For
consumption.
retail, and
Right,
I'm,
so the police department belongs in here, right, and town hall.
That's
It all
for
falls under
retail.
town property.
Yeah.
throughout the whole.
Right, yeah, so we're gonna add the
all- so
town.
we, Jason did cover all town property. Was that, and whether
Okay,
it's,
I don't
whether it's
see
a
it on the
police
list, that's
station.
why, yeah.
We didn't, because everything that came across town property, whether you were on a town baseball field or in the police station, that all
Okay,
fell
good.
under town property, it's all protected regardless.
Okay, so there's an addition to this list.
All town property is just in one,
Okay.
one
I
thing,
want
yeah,
to
so.
clarify one thing. These buffers that are here are a 500-foot or 1,000-foot buffer around the parcel edge. So it's from the parcel edge. So,
In
like,
any
let's say-
direction, 1,000 feet
Correct.
from,
Right.
if it's an
Correct. So, like,
irregular
give
shaped property.
Stotsky, for example, Stotsky has tag, that's a daycare, so that's 1,000 feet right there. You don't even have to worry about Stotsky at the park because of the daycare, it already has
Right.
1,000 feet and it's covered. So even though that we do have quite a bit of overlap, especially in the downtown area.
Okay.
Emery, in terms of the state regs, and I understand we can, as a municipality, we can come up with our own regulations. In terms of the times here, because I remember I was participated in this and these
So that'll
times.
be in the code, right, that
If
all
the state
town
has
property- I didn't see it here, that's why. I
no
was
regulation on time, we can then regulate the time.
Because
as we
that's.
go.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's
the
town
state
property, so
statute
I didn't see that.
literally
It's
states
unlike the,
time, place, and manner.
yeah. That's
And-
interesting compared to the SLA, which.
Right.
All right, I'm just making that comparison, okay.
And
I
and
get
I
it.
think we're going beyond just smoking. It's all consumption of, in any form, right?
Well, no,
Somebody
this
can
is
tell me, you're not
for,
gonna know it.
so what's before you is simply retail store or on-site
On-site
consumption lounge.
Right.
These smoking provisions, you already adopted
Yes.
approximately, I think, 2-3 weeks ago. We put it up once, then Councilman Rothwell recommended an amendment, we renoticed and adopted.
Yes. This also discussed time, so we worked, we investigated, we brought out the SLA hours for like alcohol policies. We had discussions with the committee, and we did, within our proposed legislation, we did state times. And for the most part of it was to kind of follow a similar concept of the time frame of which SLA does for alcohol sales.
Yeah,
So it's not 24 hours, there's a start and a finish.
So during the process, we researched a whole host of laws, alcohol laws, smoking laws, drug-free zones, and we were very open with the participants and actually were giving them the law. This is what we're looking at, this is what we're considering, and this is how they, I think we all reached a, not, I didn't vote, but they reached a consensus.
I think one of the
So we
things.
need to do more work, but
But one of
not
the things I
much
think now is where we need to engage, all of the town board supervisors, basically, when we look at the zoning, I think one of the largest aspects actually comes up within the Jamesport Rural Corridor, and I know that Jamesport Greater Civic Association has great concerns about that. So we need to kind of look at that as a committee towards how, whether you want to limit within that zone or how do you want to address the rural corridor through Jamesport, because there's certainly concerns there. Saturation factor we need to consider, and so whether it's by zoning or it's by total number within the township, how many we're going to allow. How we did these buffers, the proximities, the setbacks, whether we're going from property line to property line, or are we going door to door? Because there are some significant large properties some that could go from almost 25 all the way down to Sound Avenue, and if you just slightly touch the property, are you eliminating that whole property? Or if a building that may be a retail shop is set back, 300-400 feet, and it goes out of that buffer area, do you want to allow that in there? So we need to kind of get the town board's foresight on that.
Yes, the councilman and I have debated this, and
Yes.
the rest of the town board needs to debate him on this.
And so I'm more in tune, from door to door, quite frankly, because I think there are some large properties and that a large scale property in itself can be considered a setback.
And on property line.
And I'm in the middle.
And, because he's smart. The other thing is proximity to residential uses. So where we look at some of these properties, we did say no to the town. There are, Anne Marie and I went with Jason, there's a significant number of properties that are permissible within the town of Riverhead. And so with that in mind, the only other concerns is what if there's a residential house adjacent to those immediate properties? And whether or not, how does that feel? What would be, if we only had, for example, one retail shop and it was adjacent, it was legal and adjacent to, because it's zoned properly, but it's adjacent to a residential structure, what kind of traffic may impede or become, does it become a factor next to the residential area? So what, if anything,
So
do we
we
want
put
to
in
put
a
any type of
1,000-foot
setback,
buffer.
1,000 feet from any residential, trying to be kind to your neighbor, so to speak. So those are the things that really we need to kind of work on now with the town board, because now I think we're ready to go to code revision with it and
Yeah.
get everybody's insight and to pass legislation on this. And I thank again all the work for everybody within the committee.
Yeah, it was a great committee. It was really interesting.
Questions at all?
I appreciate the work that everybody's put in. This is, in discussions I've had with you, the way you approached this, I think was awesome.
Thank
I think that where you had both sides being able to input and come to an agreement is amazing, because that's not always so easy to be done, as we know so well up here. So thank you for that. Appreciate that.
So the only maps you're really getting are the first and then the final three. The committee was presented throughout each and every meeting, updated maps. So this is what we're down to.
I even found there were proponents that were looking for retail establishments, and it was they themselves that said, no, we need to go further away from churches. And I was like, wow, you're not advocating to,
Right.
to lower the restrictions, but it was some of those members that actually said, no, we want to be more uniform with the schools and other things. So it was enlightening. We
And
worked
there was a
together.
proponent of marijuana, very strong proponent, who, when it came to daycare, said 1,000 feet. And the rest of the group was like, okay, daycare 1,000 feet.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, people are generally pretty responsible.
It was a really interesting group. It was a great group.
Good.
Good.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Emily, thank you, Jason. Great work. Thank you to everyone on the
Good
committee.
job, I love those maps, Jason.
Okay, moving forward, our next discussion, I'll ask Councilman Ken Kern and Deputy Town Attorney Dan McCormick to brief us on a discussion surrounding changes to the town's alcohol policy.
Supervisor, can we also bring up Steve Schroeder?
Sure.
Okay.
Good morning, Steve.
Steve was also on our cannabis committee.
Yeah,
I will say I was
Steve's
very,
a busy
very well
guy.
known. Yes.
Steve
yes.
is spread out all over Riverhead.
Many hands.
Steve is going to be very busy tomorrow.
So Steve, and I'll just brief.
okay, can we
Good morning,
introduce the topic for the public, and then you can
That's-
go back and forth if you don't mind, please?
No, it's
Great.
You want me
Thank
to
you.
introduce it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is matters surrounding proposed change to Chapter 255 alcohol policy, which is an alcohol policy that did exist, and it is a policy that is about alcohol being served at public events on town property. This came to Business Advisory Committee, of which Steve Schroeder is on. Steve then took that and met with CAP. And so with that, Steve, do you want to say what the changes are based on your negotiations with CAP?
Yeah, honestly, just like we're talking about the cannabis committee and how productive that was, I feel the same way about this as well. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you just get two entities in the same room and just figure things out, right? Definitely with varying perspectives. So, as Councilman Kern said, subcommittee took the first crack at what we would like to see for changes. We sat down with Riverhead CAP and gave them in advance our proposed changes, so they had some time to digest it. Sat with Riverhead CAP and the Chief of Police. Definitely had some back and forth with some concessions. Came up with quite a bit of tweaks to it after that. Then the town attorney's office and Dan was kind enough to assist us and take it to the next level, and then here we are today. So, going through the proposed changes, obviously there's some general tweaks in regards to referring to different chapters that are no longer applicable, right?
Yeah, for example, the policy has not been tweaked since it was a Chapter 90, as opposed to now a Chapter 255. So that gives us a time frame reference point.
So some general housekeeping, I guess, as a whole in there. But the big changes, obviously, are with, in regards to the scope and changing it so tying in there the Riverhead Business Improvement District and the events that we host, and really any property or any event that is held on either town-owned property or right-of-way, correct?
That's correct. This policy and its scope solely relates to alcohol service within the town's property, right-of-way, facilities, or the like. It is not addressing private property per se, which is governed by the State Liquor Authority directly.
Other things that we agreed with CAP was obviously maintaining the wristbands. One of the items that was up for discussion was the legal serving age, which is 18 per the SLA. The way that it was recently stated in here, anyone had to be 21 or over if you wanted to serve at a town-sponsored or event, where the SLA, if you were at a restaurant, you could be 18 years old and serve. This wasn't an issue in the past, and many restaurants or businesses as a whole will find someone that's a little bit older. However, in the current state of affairs and how difficult it is to find employees, last year was the first year that we really ran into an issue where we had a couple of people that were 18, 19, or 20 years old, went to the tips training, and at that point, Kelly from CAP said, by the way, they're not allowed to serve at events. They can serve at a restaurant, but they can't serve at events. So we worked with CAP on that and came to the resolution, which is also what the SLA requires, is if you are between 18, 19, or 20, you need to have someone that is 21 years of old age there to supervise as well, which is state law. So that's what we came to agree upon.
Right, and on that point, we literally added additional language that supervision must be continuous during the entire time of the service period, i.e. a supervisor must be looking over the shoulder of anyone younger than 21 or 18 or older with regard to that service requirement, which mimics State Alcoholic Beverage Control Act law.
Has this been checked with the chief of police?
Yeah, he was
I know he was scheduled to be here, and I don't know why. I have him down as having to be here, but we can still continue with the conversation. I just want to make sure that, he's aligned and he's aware of that.
Sure, he was at the table when we had that conversation with
Okay,
CAP.
great.
Definitely involved.
Perfect.
The next item that came into an issue, was with the current marketing permits that the SLA provides. We have a couple entities within the town of Riverhead that create spirits, and at the events, they are selling the bottles to go, but as of right with the SLA, they're allowed to provide quarter-ounce samples at the event. The way that the wording of the current alcohol policy is stated, they would not be allowed to do that. So what we went back and forth, and also again with the chief of police and CAP, SLA allows them to provide 3 quarter-ounce samples, no more than that.
Per person, per event.
Per person per event, correct. So that's what we're proposing to implement that and be consistent with the current SLA requirements or the marketing permit.
Right, and just to expound on that particular point, Steve, I know this was a point of contention during the entire history of this amendment process. The chief was very adamant in speaking for him at this point about concern regarding the service of spirits, including whiskey. There's been additional language added that there has to be a very foolproof mechanism and measuring stick or measuring cup, so to speak, with regard to a true pour. So my understanding, speaking with Steve, through Moonshine's representatives, that they're going to be very clear on the actual measuring amount that they're going to include. So any service for one particular individual during the event shall not be more than 3/4 of an ounce, or obviously with respect to that person with multiple service.
One-
3 1/4.
Three 1/4 ounces for a total of 0.75
And so
ounces of
Dan-
alcohol.
Dan, so you know, pours, when you purchase pours, right, that you can get them 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 1 ounce, right? That's one way. The other way is actually 1/4 ounce little cups.
We're giving them options.
Yeah, so they have those options.
Right, but the most important consideration is that it is a true pour.
3 of those samples equal half of a shot. A shot is 1.5 ounces. So 3 of those would be 0.75, so if you're giving 3 samples out, it's half of a shot. We're not talking a
Yeah.
humongous.
And those,
Plus, I'm the guy that's got 18 hands attached to my back, and I keep putting them, you know.
Right.
but
But,
those businesses aren't really in a business to give that out
No,
for free. They
that's-
want people to
that's
buy the
right.
bottles, which are not for
Absolutely.
consumption. So, they're not looking to lose money either. So
No,
I
no.
think it's just putting some safety and regulations on it, obviously, to find that happy medium is what we're going for. And any of the other requirements for serving, whether it be wristbands, tip certification, obviously checking IDs, they're going to be held to the same accountability as any of the alcohol vendors at the events.
Can I add one more thing that CAP requested and received was that there were exclusions of town property where events could take place and alcohol's being served. Dan, do you want to just say what they are?
Yes, to reiterate, for example, alcohol will still be excluded regarding service at the marinas, all playing fields, all children's playgrounds, and any and all designated parks wherein there are playgrounds or playing fields. So we wanted to ensure that there was no alcohol service in proximity to children or anybody else who would be vulnerable in that particular situation. So that's been reiterated in the policy, and that will continue. But most importantly, remember, you have discretionary power as a board. So any application that comes before you on a case-by-case basis, you can review and then either approve or disapprove based on the nature of the event. You never lose that discretionary power with regard to any of these applications, since by the nature of the scope, 255 involves town property, of which you are the governing board.
Dan, can you rent out town property such as at Stotsky Park for, say, a family reunion and have by permit from the recreation department alcohol at that?
We spoke with Ray on that particular issue, so to date, he does not permit that as an exclusion in the agreements he has that they execute with regard to that vendor agreement. So it's excluded in any place where children will be coming together.
Okay, because I know years ago you could do that, like at Stotsky, if you rented out the area there for a party, you
Right.
could have alcohol, but it had to be approved by the recreation department.
Right, and my understanding from Ray is that is not being
Okay.
granted as an approval process. And by way of example, and Councilman Kern can address this as well, Veterans Memorial Park came up as an issue, right? So we have those wonderful ball fields up there, which are primarily used by adult men and women softball leagues or the like. But Ray advised us that there's also now a lacrosse component involving youth sports. And so Ray, in consultation with Councilman Kern and us, said, look, I'm not comfortable even in that venue. Why? Because you may have men's softball on one field, but on the field adjacent, you may have a girls' lacrosse tournament. And again, we don't want to mix alcohol service in close proximity to the children. So Veterans Memorial Park is excluded from alcohol service in all ways, shapes, and forms.
So on page 7, Dan, and there's in page 7, and the loss of serving privileges, you go down to the second line that starts with town, in red, Town of Riverhead personnel. I'm confused about that, in other words, a tips-trained staff, police officer, Town of Riverhead personnel, event sponsor, or any other designated party. So basically, a Town of Riverhead personnel can stop people from doing it. Can you just, so if somebody from B&G goes over there and says, oh, no, you can't be doing this, they can stop them.
Right, great
And that's
question.
why town board members was stricken from this. I mean, police officers make sense.
Yes.
The event coordinator makes sense, but town of personnel, I would like to amend this and take that out, because I don't know what you're
Right.
referring to.
Well, as a reminder, Councilman Kern, we also have our fire marshal division, as well as code enforcement. So pursuant to their duties as New York
Well,
State code enforcement
Should we
officers.
then be specific about that, so that, does that make sense to everybody here, as opposed to just leaving it broad?
Well, we could designate certain officers who are code enforcement officers. However, since this policy inures to your benefit and the town's benefit, I would recommend you keep that language in here. What would
So
happen
it covers
realistically
anybody.
is,
I get it. Is that
correct,
where you're going?
they would notify their supervisor, who would then
get
notify
it.
the appropriate parties
Steve?
with regard to enforcement ability
Okay.
at the scene.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
One of the other items that we had added to this, this is something that's not really different than what we've done in the past, but really just dictating the insurance requirements. So in regards to the alcohol vendors, it's 2 million and 2 million, and then also requiring it being named as additionally insured, as well as
Primary
Thank
non-contributory
you.
coverage?
Yep, exactly.
Regard to the insurance.
The one thing to keep in mind is in the past, when looking at, again, that entity that had the marketing permit through the SLA, in the past, we treated them as a vendor of the event, which was a lower tier insurance requirement. So that, this does spell that we continue that, rather than require them to do the 2 million, like other alcohol vendors that are selling beer in mass quantity or for consumption there.
Right, just to elaborate on that, Steve, right? So the real issue here was, we have a vendor who is going to propose to provide samples of whiskey. The question is, since they're providing samples and they're not selling it, right? What was the amount of the insurance that should be required, right?
Yeah, right.
So in terms of a balancing act, Business Advisor, in consultation with Councilman Kern, had recommended that we drop the 2 million per occurrence to 1 million per occurrence with regard to that sampling. Obviously, as counsel for the town, that's a concern to me in terms of protecting the town's interests with regard to insurance, which I provided more elaborate information to the town board on that particular issue. It's a question of risk tolerance, okay? That's really where we are at this particular point. If the board is comfortable with that in terms of including now a scope regarding whiskey service on a sampling basis or any other spirit, then that's where we are at this point. But again, because we are dropping that insurance requirement, which we never did before, going back to the Walter administration, we compromised at 2 million with respect to insurance across the board for all alcohol vendors.
But you're talking about, and you got to be real clear about making this distinction. One is, the 2 million is for consumption. The 1 million is for sampling. And when you to use your words, the risk tolerance, and the tolerance of somebody consuming versus the tolerance of somebody sampling is night and day.
I will say, from a business perspective,
You don't give stuff away.
they looked at this and adding to get the 2 million. So as a business, it would have cost them $10,000 more. So if that puts in perspective, and the potential negative impact it would have on this specific, doesn't mean they can't get another quote from another insurance broker, but with this specific one that we looked at, it would have been a $10,000 increase, which that's an expense that they're not going to incur.
So it knocks out, like wineries, it knocks out Montauk Distillery and Twin Forks. It just knocks out too many people. Even when you taste beer, when you just at a tasting, it's a dram. It's, to give you an idea, but anyway.
I commend the work that you guys have done, Bob, and, I stand behind Cap all along, and I didn't think you guys were going to come, quite frankly,
I
to an agreement. And so Cap is firm and strong, and I stand behind them, but
Yeah.
through diligent work, you guys came together, so thank you very much.
I remember last year, Live on 25, when it exploded. Hundreds of calls being made, gee, fuss, and we were like trying to figure it all out. So you came full circle. I commend you for your hard work and
It only
things.
took 364 days, right?
Yeah, but you got it done, no? And you got
That's
it done.
right.
just in time also.
But
so.
thank, and obviously Dan.
Yeah,
thank you
Dan,
for
thank you for your work on this.
And Bob, thank you for taking the lead. I know this was something that you put a lot of work into and brought everybody together, and you did very well. Then, again, thank you guys. Enjoy your 4th of July.
Thank you.
So, just a couple of housekeeping matters.
Sure.
I presume the board's going to amend the policy as is at this particular point based on the recommendations of BAC and Councilman Kern, correct?
Yes.
Because the next town board meeting is after tomorrow night's first Alive on 25, I'm going to kindly ask if you could kindly then initial and ratify this resolution and provide permission for Devin to add this to minute tracks for the July 6th town board meeting. Secondly, because Twin Stills is going to be now added as a whiskey alcohol server at this event, I have a separate resolution designating them as a authorized alcohol service vendor with respect to the town's co-sponsorship of this event. That's a separate resolution. I would also ask if you are of that particular position that you also initial that, with the understanding I will add that to minute track with regard to the July 6th town board meeting. So there will be two separate resolutions. One is to initial the actual alcohol policy, as well as Twin Stills being added as an additional vendor.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, Dan,
Fine?
thank you.
Good
Uh-huh.
deal?
I think I
Fine.
need to taste Twin Stills first.
Yeah.
You only get 3.
That's right.
Did you bring samples?
volunteer security at that booth.
I'll have those available immediately after the meeting.
Yes.
so.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve, thank you,
Thank
Dan.
Dan.
You're welcome.
A lot of work, Steve, you put, I know, so thank you.
A lot of hands
And
up.
thank you for everything you do for our town.
Oh,
I
my
know you are
pleasure.
an octopus, so
We got that
it's
tomorrow.
appreciated. All right. Our last discussion, we're going to have Jeff Murphy come forward, our building and planner administrator, and he's going to be joined by Eric Howard, our town attorney, for a chat on this chapter 301 related to PB zoning. Jeff and Eric, please come forward. Good morning.
After the
Well,
food
good morning again
digesters
to
and
you.
marijuana and alcohol, this is,
Yeah,
This is an easy one. This is a no-brainer. We talked about this for business PB district, that basically Roanoke Avenue doesn't allow single-family dwelling units, which is kind of silly because there's many of them there.
Yep.
As there are many businesses also where residences have been turned into businesses over time, which is what that zoning allows. This is just basically and simply to add one-family dwellings to that zoning district because it's not currently on it,
The way it originally was.
the way it originally was, yes.
And if anybody wants to add on to their house, it would require an expansion of pre-existing non-conforming use, which requires a special permit from the
yeah.
board.
Right.
And very costly.
So if a dentist office closed down, went out of business, they could sell back to a residential home.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, just, it makes no sense. I don't see any downside to this at all. You know, that's why we did it, and that's why it's here before us today, so.
Great.
Good work, that's all I can say, because it's smart.
This was a no-brainer. This was a easy, I wish they were all like this.
Yeah. Oh, this is like the shortest
Great
discussion
presentation.
ever. This is record time.
This is what happens when you become the town of yes. And better, the town of KNOW.
That's it.
Okay, that's it, guys.
Well,
If
thanks
you
for
agree,
making
I'd
me
like
walk
to
up here.
Good job, Eric.
have your blessing to put it on the next agenda, next Tuesday's agenda, or Wednesday's agenda, excuse me, just to schedule for public hearing, if you agree with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Wow. Thank you. Enjoy your 4th of
I'll
July.
present all the next work session.
the way
items
with
for
words
you.
today, sir.
Okay. Thank you again, and Joanne, this is going to conclude our work session, but we're going to have first our discussions, then we're going to have Joanne now come up for our resolutions. Joanne, can you please come forward? Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning, everybody. Ready for resolutions?
Yes, we are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Resolution number 1, authorizes the supervisor to issue a letter to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services allowing the use of Pine Barrens credits originated from property located in Riverhead Academy Charter School in Wyandanch. Number 2, authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement authorizing the town to accept funds from Suffolk County office for the Aging to supplement the town's expanded in-home services for the elderly program. Resolution number 3, resolution terminating agreement with AKRF Inc.
Couldn't come soon enough? Did I
Number
just say
4,
that? Oh.
authorizes the supervisor to execute a second amendment to license agreement with Quinn Lee, Inc., doing business as Bloom. Number 5, appoints automotive equipment operator. Number 6, appoints automotive equipment operator. Number 7, appoints a seasonal clerk to the Riverhead Recreation Department. And number 8, appoints a call-in recreation aide to the Recreation Department. Number 9, appoints a assessment clerk. 10, ratifies the appointment to town budget officer. 11, ratifies the terms and conditions of employment for Debbie Burkowski, town budget officer. 12, approves special event Chapter 255 application for Long Ireland Brewing. We're halfway to St. Patrick's Day. Wow.
Started early.
Any excuse.
Let's go. Number
Surprised I missed
13.
the three-quarter way to St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Number 13, approves special event Chapter 255 application for Garden of Eve Garlic Festival. Number 14, approves special event Chapter 255 application for Chicken Kids consignment event, which will be held October 11th through October 16th, 2022. Approves special event Chapter 255 application for Cystic Fibrosis Foundation CF Cycle for Life. 16, adopts a local law amending Chapter 259 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Raceways, parentheses, 259.4 days and hours of operation, rescheduling. Number 17, adopts a local law amending Chapter 253 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Outdoor Dining. 18, grants final site plan approval for the site plan application of 205 Osborne Avenue, mixed-use building, 205 Osborne Avenue, Riverhead, New York, SCTM number 600-128-2-21.1 and 600-128-2-22. And number 19, authorizes extension of the Riverhead Parking District to include properties at 205 Osborne Avenue, SCTM, number 600-128-2-21.1 and 600-128-2.22. Number 20, assumes lead agency and issues negative declaration pursuant to SECRA for the special permit and site plan application for Dry's Specchio Factory Outlet Stores, 2009 Old Country Road, Riverhead, New York, SCTM number 600-118-3-7. Number 21, schedules public hearing for the special permit application of Dry's Specchio Manufacturers Outlet Center, 2009 Old Country Road, Riverhead, New York, SCTM number 600-118-3-7. Number 22, grants special permit for 265 Washington Avenue to establish a home occupation in an accessory structure pursuant to Town Code Section 301-14B, parentheses 5, 265 Washington Avenue, Jamesport, New York, SCTM number 600-68-3-26. And number 23, extends agreement for landfill monitoring. Number 24, general fund, parentheses A01, budget adjustment. Number 25, approves Ed Cork and Sons, Inc. as drain layer for Riverhead Sewer District. Number 26, approves fireworks application for Riverhead Raceway, August 13, 2022. Number 27, authorizes Lawrence M. Levy to provide additional cablecast production services regarding the 2022 State of the Town Address on June 29, 2022, at 7:00 p.m. at the Town Board Meeting Room, Riverhead Town Hall, 200 Howell Avenue, Riverhead, New York, Nung Pro Tunk. Number 28, authorizes Lawrence M. Levy, doing business as On-Site Productions, Nunk Pro Tunk, to provide additional audio/visual production services for the town of Riverhead. Number 29, awards bids for Town of Riverhead sale of obsolete/surplus Highway Department vehicles/equipment. And number 30, extends bid for disposal of town-generated construction and demolition material. Number 31, Water District Plan 10, Storage Tank Project 82055, budget adjustment. Number 32, rescinding of the Water Capital Project number 82112, the shipyard closure. Number 33, Water Capital Project number 82112, the shipyard budget amendment. Number 34, authorizes the supervisor to sign a proposal from Urban Design Associates for development of a central riverfront activation plan. Number 35, Riverhead IDA budget transfer. Number 36, ratifies the approval of Riverhead Raceway fireworks application, July 2nd, 2022.
Just back up to 35 for a second.
You know what, I wanted to go to 34, so.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me go to 34.
Okay,
Where is this fund, Anne Marie, is coming from, $78,000?
I'm sorry, the what?
Number 34, regarding urban design,
do you want me to read it again?
Riverfront activation plan.
activation plan.
Are the deadlines in here? I didn't get a chance to read that. I
Yeah.
asked it to be inserted.
Can, you have a copy of that? No. Do you have a copy of this? You want to look at it? Okay, it states estimated cost of $78,500. Where are these funds coming from?
To the best of my knowledge, and unfortunately, I don't believe Dawn is here
Yeah.
today, it's monies under one of the grants that we received.
BGDD, I
Correct.
think it was. She sent us an email
Right,
on
okay,
that indicating
perfect.
where they were coming
Thank
from.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And there was
And
another question?
35?
35, the IDA budget transfer, because I don't have everything up on it. What is that referring to?
Those are funds that were under another grant, the CARES?
That's correct. And that was approved actually a year ago by the town board, adopted
Okay.
a resolution.
No, we had that whole,
And so what happened is, throughout, quote, the past 7-8 months, the work was being done, not yet completed, but because we had to do a closeout in December, year end, and services just got completed, we, according to Bill, we have to, quote, reopen, refund it.
okay.
Can I go
Refund
back
that
to
amount.
34, and it says estimated 78,000. So that concerns me that it's not the final price. That's one. What is estimated? How open-ended is this agreement?
I will confirm, and if it is estimated, I can tell you, I'll put in an amendment and make it firm.
Could you do that? And
Yes.
just make sure that the deadlines are clear. They did a visual presentation with what they deadline. So if that can also be, I asked for that to be in the agreement, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
milestones
Great.
with payment.
Well, they committed to, they were gonna do this by July, this by August, and, I wanna hold any outside vendor to what they commit to. And estimated is too open-ended for me. Thank you.
All right, so we'll amend that resolution.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Number 37, authorization for an employee to attend a training course. And the last, number 38, authorizes supervisor to sign an amended memorandum of agreement with Suffolk County for the school bus stop-arm camera program. That's all.
That's it. I just got a text. The Gableson Farm is donating flowers to the town, and then we're gonna need a resolution. So can we just have a discussion? Can we put it in forward, ratify it?
Sure.
Okay, because I think they're picked up, and we
Very
want to thank.
generous of them.
Yeah, very generous. They're going to Jamesport, they're going to the Recreation Department. I believe it was a few hundred flats.
Wow,
So this
very
just
nice.
came in, so if we can, Shannon has been working with them this week, So we can add that resolution,
Great.
I would appreciate it. And again, thank you,
Thank you,
Gabrielson.
George.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks,
Well,
George.
it was Emily who.
Oh, Emily, oh, okay.
Thank you,
Okay,
Emily.
I just assumed it was George, okay.
Yep, Emily, thank you
Very
again.
good, thank you, Emily.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our work session. In a moment, I'm going to ask for a first and a second to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter surrounding the acquisition of real property with Kern and Anne Marie Prudenti. Can I have a first and a second to close this?
So moved.
Second.
Great. All in favor? All opposed? So moved. Again, have a great holiday, everyone. Be safe.
You want to talk to executive, you guys can call me on the cell.